Hey there, spooky friends, and welcome to another episode of the Scaryish podcast.
Whoa.
This week, we have another set of interesting topics. Adam's going to continue his...
Covering magical artifacts, I believe is the name of the series. Robin, what are you covering this week?
I'm going to be covering, I guess, true conspiracies, like government conspiracies that prove to be true.
Right on.
Yeah.
That'll be exciting. I think we've gone over some in the past that were, conspiracy theories. It'll be nice to hear some that wound up being confirmed. I think we've covered some of those too. It's hard to tell at 244 episodes in, but it's going to be a fun time. So that said, before we dive into anything, Robin, we have an announcement to make. And I know that a lot of people get excited or terrified when their podcasts tell them we have an announcement to make, and you don't have to be either. This is a pretty basic, pretty simple announcement. So
we're
up
just
until now,
moving our release day.
yeah, up until now we do Tuesdays for release days, but the last few weeks it's just made more sense for us to do Wednesday because Robin has pretty busy weekends, especially on Sunday. So pretty wiped out on Monday. We don't have a lot of time to start doing the topic research during the weekend, and we've been doing stuff on Monday, but trying not to push ourselves too hard. Especially since Robin gets up super early for work, stuff like that. So Wednesday has made more sense, and we're just going to stick with it. We're going to do Wednesday releases from now on. So those of you who are used to having us in your ear holes on Tuesday, you're going to have to wait until Wednesday from now on. And those of you who have been thinking, man, I wish they would release on Wednesday, you're welcome. Your wish is granted. So yeah, that's the announcement. Nothing too big. Robin, what's been going on with you for this past week, though? How's your week been?
I feel like I've been pretty boring. Went to Knott's Berry Farm, that was cool.
Right on. Did you ride on that ride that I talked about? That's a model of the ride that kills people.
I think we only rode one ride because it was really hot and I totally did not feel well. I was like, oh my goodness, but it was a good time.
Right on.
Overall, they have carnival games. That's cool.
Cool. That sounds like fun. Wish I could have been there. For me, didn't really do a whole lot.
Dog's getting bigger.
Yeah, our puppy's getting bigger. She's getting better. She has free roam of the house. She is kennel trained, but she doesn't have to go into it if she doesn't want to. She goes in there sometimes just lay down and sleep. Sometimes she wants to hide in there to take her little toys so that her sister can't steal them from her, which is always cute. But yeah, she's a little bit of a handful, but it's adorable. Outside of that, I did some streaming. I streamed on my personal channel. I streamed a game that my company is working on. I say my company, the company I work for, called Champions Ascension. So thank you to those of you who came out and watched. It was a fun time. And then I also streamed... there's these horror games like Friday the 13th where it's 7 versus 1. One person plays Jason Voorhees. The other 7 people are camp counselors trying to escape. And there's Dead by Daylight where it's 4v1. There's this new one which has that feel to it. And it's called Dragon Ball The Breakers, and it's set in the world of Dragon Ball Z, and it's another 7 versus 1, and it was an open beta, so I streamed that, and it was fun. We had a lot of spooky friends pop into my personal channel, which was awesome, and it was a fun time. Game has some issues that I got annoyed with, but overall, I think we had a good time, so thank you to everyone who joined me for that, and who knows, maybe now that the puppy is a little bit more trustworthy around the house, I'll be able to stream more in the future, and we'll be able to stream more as a podcast, but we'll see what the future holds, and we'll definitely let you folks know what's going on with that. But enough of me talking. Let's go ahead and jump into these topics. Robin, I believe you said you're going to go first, so take it away.
All right. So this week, I thought I'd do something a little different than my usual go-to. I don't think I've covered any conspiracy theories, or if I have, it hasn't been, too in-depth or anything. Maybe I glazed over it, but I thought these might be interesting because I'd never heard of them before. So maybe you guys might find it interesting as well. If you're listening to us, you're probably not new to the idea of conspiracy theories or, government cover-ups, things like that. And maybe you've fell down a conspiracy hole yourself or, had your own theories that you've thought up and I don't know, let us know if you have some conspiracy theories that you find unique or hilarious. But while researching all of this, there were these things that I had never heard of before that actually play somewhat big part of our history. And maybe you'll find it fascinating, maybe not. But either way, I'm going to get into it. These are conspiracies that you never knew were true. Or maybe you do know they're true. But either way, I'm gonna let you know. So, as a Vietnamese individual, this first one was something that I never thought of, and I didn't realize it was a thing, and I was so fascinated when I read about it. And that is the Gulf of Tonkin incident. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or anything.
I have not actually, no.
All right. Okay. Perfect. That means we haven't covered it before.
You made my ears excited to hear this information.
So apparently there was or is a conspiracy theory that the United States had joined the Vietnam War based on an attack that never actually happened. So I was like, what?
That's interesting.
So, okay. So on August 2nd, 1964, the USS Maddox was stationed in the Gulf of Tonkin off the coast of North Vietnam. So at that time, it was reported that it was attacked by some North Vietnamese torpedo boats. And then 2 days later, it was claimed that they had been attacked again. So following that second attack, that quote unquote second attack, Congress passed a resolution just about unanimously that allowed the federal government to quote unquote take all necessary measures to protect U.S. forces in Vietnam. So I know it's awful that I had no idea that this was a thing, but that is apparently how that war started. There's your little history nug, your little knowledge nug for this episode.
You're going to be getting a lot of history nugs in this episode.
In the early 2000s, around 200 documents were declassified and released by the National Security Agency, or you might know them as the NSA. I'm sure a lot of you out there have heard of the NSA. There's been a whole bunch of stuff with them in recent years. But in these documents, it was revealed that there was never an attack on the 4th of August that year. There had never been a second attack. So that second attack that made the U.S., join this war never actually happened. And they joined a war based on a lie or a miscommunication or just nonsense, right? So despite this lie, an attack wasn't necessarily a surprise if it would have actually happened. Obviously, during this time, there was a lot of tension. The USS Maddox had actually been patrolling those waters off the North Vietnam coast to monitor their activity and gather intel on what they were doing and all their activities, things like that. So it wasn't surprising that that destroyer was really being tracked by North Vietnamese patrol boats too. So it's like they're kind of tracking each other, learning stuff. The first attack on August 2nd did happen. That was a real attack that happened. There are photos of the torpedo boats actually coming at them. The USS Maddox did report a real event that day. They had fired warning shots at these boats, but the boats launched torpedoes at the destroyer anyway, causing minimal damage on this ship. After this original attack, the USS Maddox escaped to safer waters and then returned with another destroyer, the USS Turner Joy. So now they were kind of traveling in packs, so they weren't by themselves, right?
Can you imagine being a sailor on a boat? Like, spending so much time on a boat and then having a torpedo shot at it. Like, I live here, man. Like, you're shooting a missile at my floating home that could kill me. Like, that would be terrifying.
It would be terrifying. And like I said, those times were full of tension. Everyone was kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? So though these two destroyers stayed miles apart from each other, they would message back and forth between the two of them on whatever each was doing or what they would see, things like that. So the USS Maddox was reporting these blips on their sonar. So these things would show up on their sonar and then disappear and then appear again. And they saw this as like signs of a possible attack. And so they're, messaging back and forth with this other destroyer. Pilots were sent to fly overhead to kind of get a view of these possible enemy ships and figure out like what it is that they're seeing on this sonar. And according to a Commander James Stockdale, one of the pilots there that day, quote, I had the best seat in the house to watch the event, and our destroyers were just shooting at phantom targets. There were no PT boats there, nothing there but black water and American firepower, end quote. So this pilot that's watching all of this happen is like, what the hell are they shooting? You know what I mean? The event could have been chalked up to an inexperienced sonar technician or operator, or they had some faulty equipment.
Maybe it was a smudge on a lens.
Smudge on a lens? One of the people, I forgot his name, he was thinking that they were the crests of the waves. So huge waves would crest and it would show on their sonar. That's what they were thinking that they might have been seeing. The USS Turner Joy, that other destroyer that was there with them, never actually detected any torpedoes or anything during that whole time. So this USS Maddox is freaking out, and this other ship is just like, I have no idea what's going on. On August 5th, after going through all the craziness at sea, Captain John Herrick started having doubts about what they had experienced. So he sent an early morning message to Honolulu, and he reported, quote, review of action makes many reported contacts and torpedoes fired appear doubtful. Freak weather effects on radar and overeager sonar men may have accounted for many reports. No actual visual sightings by Maddox. Suggest complete evaluation before any further action taken, end quote. So this guy, the captain of the Maddox, was already like, dude, we were freaking out. Nothing happened. We're just reeling because we got attacked on the 2nd. Before you guys do anything, just review everything and we'll figure it out. But there was no time for them to evaluate anything because U.S. officials just ran with it and declared that they would go on to approve the Gulf of Tonkin resolution a few days later, on August 7th, 1964. And this is what led the U.S. into joining the Vietnam War. So,
wow.
Yeah, so this guy was like, chill, stop. And the government's like, nah, dog, it's too late. We've done this. We're in it.
We've been waiting for this whole time. Like, we want to join
and
in, and now
that is what happened. So they took this as an excuse to join something that I'm sure they were just sitting there, twiddling their thumbs waiting to happen. So these declassified documents and tapes revealed that one of the most memorable wars in our country's history was indeed based on a huge jump to conclusions or like a manipulation of facts, For decades, there were conspiracies and theories that this was indeed the case, that the war had started on an attack that didn't happen. And then it was decades later that it was finally like those people that were like, dude, this is what happened, finally have their, justice, their like
vindication.
Vindication, yes. That they were like, I was right this whole time. It was actually an NSA employee in 2005 who conducted an analysis of the records from that night that kind of put 2 and 2 together. So one of these tapes is actually a recording of President Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson, saying, quote, hell, those damn stupid sailors were just shooting at flying fish, end quote.
Wow.
Like, if your president's fucking saying that about the incident, but they still joined the war, it's just like, oh my God, it's crazy. I never knew that this was a thing, so it's just mind-blowing for me. Yeah, Vietnam War.
Not so fun fact, 60,000 Americans died in Vietnam.
That's
based on
depressing
bullshit.
as fuck. Yeah.
That is,
all right.
That's sad.
So this next one is not as depressing. It's pretty interesting, actually. and really believable to me. Apparently, the idea that the government has a gun that could secretly kill you, leaving no trace, actually exists or existed. So I remember when people were kind of dropping dead from these headaches or something years ago.
The Havana syndrome thing?
Yeah, you covered it in an episode.
Mm-hmm.
So these ambassadors or something were dying from these unknown causes.
I covered it the same day Dr. Sidney McElroy on Sawbones covered it. So
God damn
that was
it.
very intimidating. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah. So these people's deaths were connected to assassinations or something, right? Or attempted assassinations. I'm not sure.
They were like testing out. No, I mean, it's not confirmed, but it's very much thought that
it's one of those conspiracy
there's like
theories.
a sonic I think it's a sonic weapon that has been tested against various diplomats around the world and different
It's
embassies.
like something untraceable.
Yeah.
And apparently there is indeed something that can kill you without leaving a trace. The CIA created a modified Colt 1911 handgun known as the heart attack gun, or HAG.
Wow.
And it was featured in a 1975 video of a government probe meaning like, like a committee hearing type thing, investigation.
No
and
breathing.
So during this video, this gun was introduced and, given as evidence of things that the CIA did during the Cold War. These videos have since gone viral by historians and conspiracy theorists because it's just absolutely fascinating the things that they got up to, during those years. A lot of us know about the Cold War and all the espionage that went on during that time. I know I had to ask Adam a while back. I was like, what does that mean?
She's like, what is a Cold War? I was like, obviously it's a war fought in the winter.
No, it's not. If you could explain, that would be great.
A Cold War is essentially a war that's happening where there's no significant military action. Like, you're not trying to take territory. It is two hostile nations at war with one another who are basically using espionage to subvert the other person's dominance or control over their own country or territories. So, it's a lot of spy shit, basically. It's a lot of the stuff that happened during the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States of America was, us sending spies over there and them sending spies over here to destabilize, gather information, figure out what we could do in case we get to a part where that war heats up and we need to send in armed forces. So that's essentially what the Cold War was. It's a war without a doubt, where, people are just taking secretive actions against one another. Rather than outright things. It's like sabotage. It's a bunch of sabotage shit. It's like, this is the best way I can put it. If you and someone are beefing and you're talking a bunch of shit about them and trying to ruin their life, but you're not beating their ass, that's the difference. A hot war is you go over there and you beat their ass. You throw hands,
Okay. Yeah.
A Cold War is when you're I'm going to talk shit about them to their boss and get them fired. And then I'm going to talk shit about them to their girlfriend and get them dumped. I'm going to ruin their life. That's Cold War shit. So, either way, it's toxic, but it's different.
All right. So this weapon is one of those items that were kind of developed to fight in the shadows. So
if you're developing a heart attack weapon, why would you use a gun? Why wouldn't you use a pen? You click your pen 3 times and it shoots a heart attack ray at someone. Why would you? It's don't worry, everyone. It's my lighter. I'm just going to point it directly at you and, oh, look, you had a heart attack. My bad.
So this heart attack gun was discovered when investigators during, this post-war time, they were going through this backlog of government secrets and CIA activity and all this fun stuff. And this gun started with this woman named Mary Embry, and she had begun working for the CIA right out of high school. She was 18, started working for the CIA. I don't know if it was easier to start working for the CIA back then, but that's what happened. I've never tried to apply for the CIA. I highly doubt I'd get hired, but
You'd be an analyst if you did get hired. That's all I know.
She was a secretary in a division of the CIA that developed surveillance equipment. So she was eventually promoted. She worked there for a while, eventually promoted to the Office of Technical Services. And while she worked there, she was ordered to find an undetectable poison. Imagine coming to work one day and someone emails you. I don't know if they would email you this or send a memo to your desk and is like, hey, I need you to find an undetectable poison. Don't ask questions. Just do it. But that's what she did. She researched and she found these shellfish toxins. So these shellfish toxins are apparently undetectable once, you're killed with them, which is weird. Apparently, it's the most ideal choice when coming up with untraceable poisons. She had no idea.
So many people that want to kill them, they're taking notes hang on, shellfish. Use the body. Keep going.
She had please don't kill anyone, everybody. So she had no idea that this was, dude. People can poison anybody with rat poison or something, okay?
But is it untraceable?
It isn't untraceable.
Exactly, that's my point.
Oh, what about, I watched a clip from House yesterday or today, and it's you can poison someone with gold.
With gold? Oh, yeah, I forgot they had their corneas turn gold or something, right? Is that episode?
Something like that. I don't know. Anyway, I want to rewatch House. Let's do it. So, this person, Mary Embry, she had no idea that this task was given to her by a project called MK Naomi.
Is that MK Ultra?
Yes. It was a secret program dedicated to the development of biological weapons for the U.S. during the Cold War. And it was a program that came in after Project MK Ultra. So it was MK Ultra's successor, right?
MK plus Ultra.
Instead of a cool name like MK Ultra, they're like MK Naomi. That sounds good.
Everyone out there with the name of Naomi is what the fuck, Robin?
So, if you guys are interested in learning about MK Ultra, Adams did an episode.
I don't think I did.
You didn't? I thought you already did.
They've come in play multiple times. I did the Montauk Project, I think.
Oh, okay.
Which is what, MK Ultra leads to the Montauk Project. It leads to a lot of shit, though. Montauk Project, I'm pretty sure, is the inspiration for Stranger Things. At least season 1. And then I covered the USS Philadelphia, the ship that disappeared.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure some of the people attached to that were also in MK Ultra. So I think those are the only two. I fear going into the MK Ultra territory because I've had some people give me some speeches about MK Ultra where I was like, get this fucking dude away from me. So
I've watched what is it called? Staring at Goats or something, that movie.
The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah. With what's his name?
Ewan
Super hot
McGregor.
guy, played Batman.
Oh, George Clooney.
Yeah. Anyway, what was it? Okay, so I guess you haven't covered it. Interesting. Maybe you'll have to do that sometime soon. So, the main projects of MK Naomi seem to be poisoning of crops and livestock. That was their main goals. Embry's discovery would lead to something a little bit more hands-on. Get it? Because handgun, hands-on.
I guess.
I mean, so in a lab at Fort Detrick, an army base dedicated to biological warfare research, a CIA chemist named Dr. Nathan Gordon, which totally sounds like something out of, a DC comic or a Marvel comic or something. He worked on how they could weaponize this shellfish toxin. So what he came up with was to mix this toxin with some water and then freeze it. So they froze it into these small projectiles like a pellet or a dart. And this would then be fired from this modified Colt M1911. And instead of using, like a combustion type firing mechanism, it was electrical. And modifying this gun and changing these things up made the gun almost completely silent when fired. So it was almost completely silent. It had a range of about 100 meters. So you can kind of imagine what these people could do with a gun that could poison people silently. Firing...
It's terrifying to think about.
Right. So firing this frozen dart of sorts at a person would only cause like a stinging sensation, like a mosquito bit you. And then the toxin, the bullet or dart would immediately melt into this person's bloodstream, effectively poisoning them. What shellfish toxins do in this particular case is it goes into the victim's body, starts shutting down their cardiovascular system. If the dart were to hit like their heart area, it would immediately kind of mimic the symptoms of a heart attack and would kill the victim in minutes without anybody knowing otherwise. The only evidence of anything amiss would be this tiny little red dot where the dart would enter the body. And Embry even claimed that the dart could pierce clothing and leave no trace.
Wow.
I know on your body, there are little tiny red dots.
Yeah, I have a bunch. No one would know.
Yep, no one would know.
Maybe I'm immune to this poison, and someone just keeps fucking shooting me because I keep getting new ones.
Maybe you were, what is it called?
A goat?
Not reanimated.
Got reanimated? I'm a fucking zombie?
No. When you die and come back, what is it called?
Immortal?
No. It starts with an R.
Resurrected?
No.
Okay, I'm out. I have no idea what word you're looking for.
When you come back, like when people say like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back as a dog.
Reincarnated?
Yes.
I'm constantly getting reincarnated as me, the same age?
No, maybe you were reincarnated and you have all these red dots because you were murdered by the CIA in your past life.
Okay, so in this scenario, what you're saying is in my past life, I was murdered by the CIA and my red dots are wounds I took that are slowly appearing on my body as I age.
Yep.
Okay, we finally found what Robin was trying to say.
You're getting closer to the age that you were murdered at.
That's
or
fucked
something. Anyway, okay. According to Embry, the weapon known as the quote-unquote non-discernible bionoculator had been tested on animals and prisoners to great effect.
And prisoners?
Which is terrifying.
That's fucked up. Like, animals is fucked up. Prisoners is really fucked up.
I don't know if they killed them or if they were just testing, like, hey, let's put an anesthetic or what is it called? Things to make them go to sleep.
A sleep dart. I don't know.
I don't know. But maybe they just did that. They didn't actually poison people. That being said, during a hearing featuring this gun, that very one, it was never stated whether the gun was ever actually used during a real operation. So it's not sure whether it was actually successful in the field. But you never know. Weird deaths have been known to happen. If it's something where people just have heart attacks and die, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to find the linchpin, and they kill one person, and it could be just somebody absolutely innocuous, but they, we would never know. But there was an actual CIA hit list that was also discovered in this investigation. So there were people that were targeted by the CIA and kind of marked for CIA-sanctioned killings. So things like a freaking dart gun to kill people silently isn't so unbelievable. MK Naomi was shut down in 1970 by President Richard Nixon. The Idaho senator at the time, Frank Church, was the one who put together the committee to investigate how far the espionage kind of went and how illegal these spy activities were. And so in 1975, they came out, they were doing this investigation. They found that Dr. Gordon, the guy who had developed the actual heart attack gun, had taken 5.9 grams of shellfish toxin and vials of toxin that had been derived from cobra venom. So he had stolen these.
Wow.
And kind of squirreled them away. They also looked into any alleged assassination plans. And this investigation / inquest lasted 9 months. So for almost a year, they were looking into everything that the CIA did. During the post-investigation hearing, the CIA director, William Colby, was he was called to testify. And on September 16th, 1975, he went before this committee and detailed some of the things that he had found upon taking his post as CIA director. So it wasn't necessarily him that did all this stuff during the Cold War. He was just like, this is all the stuff I found that they did before I took over. He brought the gun with him and kind of showed everybody this gun and allowed them to kind of touch it, hold it, check it out.
Just touch it. Just hold it. Just check it out.
Touch it. But after the hearing, no one knows what happened to the gun. It just disappeared. No one knows what happened to it.
The gun from the hearings just vanished.
It's gone.
Wow.
No one knows what happened to it, which is
bullshit.
Spooky.
People know where that is. Like, people that are paid to know where that is.
Yeah. So, because of this committee's findings, President Gerald Ford signed an executive order banning any government employee from engaging in or conspiring to engage in any political assassination. You guys might be sitting there thinking, but hey, there's no way that something like that could have existed, right? Well, if you think about it, there have been theories of ice bullets for decades.
How would it be projected, though?
It's not so out of the ordinary, right? That you can't believe this actually exists. The KGB had designed something really similar in the 1950s, but it just worked a little differently. So theirs was like a gun that had these capsules in it. And when they fired the gun, the capsule would get crushed and it would spray a gas in the face of the victim.
So like the Joker basically with his flower on his lapel.
I guess. But the gas would then cause victims to have symptoms of a heart attack. So there was that. But with the ice bullets thing, like with John F. Kennedy, right? There's the theory of the ice bullet. There's a whole bunch of different conspiracy theories, but to me, this one's more believable with all of that, you know?
I get it. I see what you're saying. I don't think ice bullets make a whole lot of sense in my brain, especially because they'd still leave an entry and exit wound. I mean, maybe not an exit wound if the ice shattered once it went inside you, but like to be pierced with a projectile like similar to a bullet.
Imagine if it was super, super tiny.
And then how would it maintain its structural integrity if it was fired that fast and once it hit you? You know? Like, I don't know.
Maybe the gun's really cold.
Here's something I thought about while you were talking about this, though. So,
okay,
we know that the government has had a bunch of weird programs where they try and obtain some sort of, what essentially is like a magical power or some like magical weapon. But what really I've always kind of thought about when it comes to like stuff like MK Ultra, you know, like the Men Who Stare at Goats, they were literally experimenting on people to try and get them to have psychic powers, to have like psychic soldiers, you know, that could kill things with their brains.
Yeah.
I still think, and I haven't mentioned this before, I do think personally that the experiments were not trying to elicit a result. I don't think someone sat down and said, I bet you we can do this. I think they were trying to replicate something. I think there was someone out there that did something that got the attention of the United States government. And when the United States government got them, they finally got them, and they figured out what they could do, they looked at them and they said, how can we make more people like this? You know?
It was aliens.
No. Why do you jump to fucking aliens? I hate you so much. But that's sincerely what I think happens in some of these cases. I think there are people out there that have something incredible or amazing, or, you know, if you watch any comic book movie, it's like a curse. And if someone, you know, like that gets captured, it would be like, you know, they always say in different movies, like, I don't want to be experimented on. And I think that's exactly what happens. Then people try and figure out, how can we use this and how can we like make this happen in someone else? But that's just me. That's just one of my personal crazy conspiracy theories. So that popped in my brain when you were talking about that. But
thanks.
Right on. Those are good. I really like hearing about stuff where people are like treated like it's a conspiracy theory and then it turns out to be true. So good stuff, Robin.
It's fascinating.
It is. Who knows what we'll know in 50 years. But all right. Before we move into my topic, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And we are back. So this week, I continue with the Magical Artifacts series, and we're getting into some of the big ones now. I want to mention, if you have a magical artifact that you would like to hear us cover, please reach out to us and let us know. The artifacts I've chosen are based primarily off of the sort of pop culture that I've had exposure to, and in some cases like religion, because a lot of these are based in religion. A little bit of religion study in college, as well as my general upbringing tossed in there as well, has made me know about these things. But the first episode of Magical Artifacts were things I had never heard of, and that was really fun to cover. So as I'm covering things I'm more familiar with, I kind of also want to hear about things that I don't know about. So please reach out and let us know. And if they're short, we'll try and combine them into an episode with multiple ones. And I think it'd be really fun to do.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. So please reach out and let us know. I actually have gotten a lot of really positive feedback about the Magical Artifact series, which is really nice to hear because I was kind of nervous to do it. They are Scaryish. I mean, if I'm telling you about some magical artifact that could like take over the world, it's obviously something that's pretty creepy. So this episode is dedicated to one of the ones that I've definitely heard of, and you probably have too. So here we go. Magical Artifacts 3. And it's funny, last week I mentioned I was building suspense for my topic, and it was something y'all could have just seen in the title. And then when I wrote the title out, when I got done editing the episode, I was like, oh, I'm using a series name. No one has any clue what I'm actually covering this episode. So I could have built more suspense. I'm stupid. So what is it that I could be covering this time? Well, I'm going to put it in the description, and I'm also going to put it in the hashtag, so you might have seen it already.
Okay.
But all of these things so far have been tied pretty closely to religion, and this does continue that trend. I have mentioned this in one of the earlier episodes as one I wanted to cover, so you might be expecting it. This is the first time, however, the Magical Artifacts series will now officially cross over with Indiana Jones.
Whoop, whoop.
This particular artifact has a long and storied history, and I'll cover it as respectfully as I can while also tossing in a couple of jokes here and there, because that's my style. That said, don't at me if you want to yell or rant about your personal beliefs. I do not fucking care. I'm looking at this, again, from an analytical standpoint. I've said this twice already, saying it for a third time. I look at it as, what was it? What could it do? Did it actually exist? And if it did, who had it? And where is it now? That's how I'm looking at all of these things. Afterwards, once you're done listening to this, feel free to give me a rating of 1 to 10 in your head. You don't have to tell me. If it's 10, go ahead and tell me. If it's anything less than 10, I don't want to hear about it. It's like NPS. Like, I consider everything that's not a 9 or a 10 basically a negative 100%. Once you've rated me and how you think I covered this topic, you can consider yourself a rater of the Lost Ark.
Oh my God.
That's right, spooky friends. We're covering the Ark of the Covenant, which is also known as the Ark of the Testimony or the Ark of God. Now, it's been a minute since I've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is the first Indiana Jones movie. So this particular research has been enlightening and reminding, because I do know some of this stuff. I just forgot I did. So this was like relight-minding, which was fun.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is not the first one.
Yes, it is. Raiders is the first.
It's the second one.
Temple of Doom is the second one. Last Crusade is the third one, and we don't speak of the fourth one.
I thought Temple of Doom was the first one.
It is the second one. I am 100% certain of this, and now that you're saying that, I'm down to 75% certain of this. I'm pretty sure Raiders is the first one. I'm not even going to Google it. I'll let you guys correct me if I'm wrong. So, anyways,
I'll Google it.
Raiders of the Lost Ark is about the Ark of the Covenant.
You are right. Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, and Last Crusade.
They're all very good. Last Crusade is just... it's a fucking
Last Crusade
of a movie.
is the best.
Growing up
so
for me,
good.
Last Crusade was the quintessential adventure movie. Like, it was just so good. But we're talking about Raiders. We're sticking with Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay.
So
the OG.
It's possible some of you out there have never seen Indiana Jones, the first one, or have never heard of the Ark. Or maybe you've heard of it, but you just don't know what it is. Because that's how I was for a while when I was younger. So the Ark of the Covenant, spoiler alert, is a box. It's funny, as a young child, I remember hearing, because I went to church until I was like 7, but I remember hearing about the Ark of the Covenant, mainly from Indiana Jones, and Noah's Ark from like church. And I remember thinking they're both called arks. So for the longest time, I thought they were both boats, and I really didn't understand Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Okay. So can I make a theory before
Sure.
you tell all of us what it actually is? Does it have anything to do with the kind of the thing that Moses' mom sent him down the river in?
No, it does not. But you're on the
Okay.
right track, mainly because
Okay.
your prediction before was completely wrong. We were talking while we were doing the research. I'm glad to
Okay.
see I've steered you in a better direction, though. So the Ark of the Covenant is not a boat. It is a box. I wasn't just saying that. It is a box. And that box is 52 by 31 by 31 inches. Or if you want dimensions in centimeters, it's 131 by 79 by 79. I know this
That's huge.
because it's literally stated in the book of Exodus what the dimensions of this box are.
Shut
which
up.
is weird. It's also made of acacia wood, which I think I'm saying correctly. It's supposed to be acacia wood and gilded entirely with gold. And it has a crown of gold put around it. It has 4 rings attached to its corners. And these are essentially loops so that you could put a staff through so that you can carry it by lifting the staff rather
All
than
right.
lifting the ark itself. Those staffs are also made of wood, but they are gilded with gold again, but they're not made with the other wood. They're made with shittim. It's called shittim, and I was told in the pronunciation video I watched, because I really do watch pronunciation videos for these things, you're supposed to put the emphasis on the last syllable, so it's not shit-im, but shittim wood. I never knew the instructions and the dimensions for the Ark of the Covenant were actually in the book of Exodus, but apparently they are.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't either. It also has a golden lid. It's called the mercy seat. And the golden lid has 2 golden cherubim, which are, smaller, childlike angels with large wings, situated on opposite sides, looking at each other. And their wings come up. They don't exactly touch in some depictions. In other depictions, they do. But it forms this empty space between the 2 of them with their wings coming over them. And then that empty space is in various stories I read where God is supposed to appear. If God's going to talk to someone with the Ark of the Covenant, that's basically the viewfinder he's going to come through. So it's a very specific set of instructions. And obviously I'm going to post pictures on our Instagram. I have several pictures of depictions throughout the millennia of what this is supposed to look like. And then I also have a picture of a replica that's been built of it. So you can check our Instagram or our Facebook page if you want to see that. So now that you know what it is, what is it? Really, what is it? Well, back in the day, there was this guy, Robin already spoiled it, named Moses. And Moses did a lot. So I'm just going to give you the relevant parts because he has a pretty long story. At one point, he went up onto a mountain called Mount Sinai. I think I'm saying that correctly. Again, I watched a pronunciation video. It's like cyanide, but without the Y and the I'd. While he was up there, he did a lot yet again. Apparently, he went up there twice, actually. One of the main things he did on one of these trips was he talked to God, as one does. And God told him, "Yo, Moses, take some notes." And Moses was like, "All right, I left my laptop at home, but I'll just use some stone tablets and chisel down the main points."
Oh, yeah, the 10 Commandments.
He got a list of do's and don'ts, which were actually just don'ts, to pass on to all of mankind. And honestly, some of these seem kind of obvious, like don't kill, don't lie, don't steal. And he came down and read off the list, and people were like, "God damn it." And he was like, that's one too. Can't say that. So it was a rough day for assholes everywhere when he came back with those 2 tablets. Those 2 tablets held the 10 Commandments, as Robin spoiled, from the Almighty God himself, or so people believe. They were important. The tablets were very important. They're imbued with divinity. They are powerful. These are the rules by which God has told mankind to live. And by taking those rules and saying, yeah, those are pretty good rules, we can follow that, that's the covenant. That's the agreement that's being established between God and mankind. There's supposed to be multiple covenants, but this particular covenant is the one I think the covenant represents. So again, if I'm wrong about this stuff, I don't really care. I'm close enough. I did a lot of fucking research on this, and I dove really deep into a lot of different religions for this just to make sure the generalities of these details were correct. So you have these 2 tablets. He's holding them. They're very heavy. You got to put them somewhere, like in a box. he got the dimensions
An arc, you might say.
from God as well. So that's one of the things that got put into the Ark of the Covenant once it was completed, was the two stone tablets that contain the Ten Commandments. Moses also, and I didn't know this, I haven't watched Prince of Egypt in a long time. Moses also had a brother. I actually don't even remember if he's even in that movie. And
his brother becomes like the Pharaoh or some shit.
He becomes Moses' prophet, apparently, in some other religious stuff I read. Someone might argue, I don't care. Moses' brother's name was Aaron, or correctly pronounced in the day, I can't remember. It's been like 5,000 years, but I think it's supposed to be pronounced Aaron. But they both had staffs. Moses had a staff, which is very famous. Aaron also had a staff. It's another very long story short here. Aaron's staff, basically, they got brought to Pharaoh. They're like, Pharaoh, yo, can we leave? Like, you suck. We don't want to stay here. And Pharaoh's like, nah. And so at one point, it kind of keeps bringing them back. And like Moses and Aaron talk to God, and God's like, Aaron, toss your staff on the ground and a miracle's going to happen. And that'll prove that the message is from me. So Aaron goes in to see the Pharaoh with Moses, and Pharaoh's like, hey, I want to see a miracle. Prove it. So Aaron tosses his rod on the ground, and it turns into a serpent, which to me is weird because that's like the devil from what I know. And the Pharaoh has sorcerers because apparently they were a thing back in the day, and they all threw their rods on the ground too, and their rods turned into serpents as well. And they're like, it's not that impressive. We can do it too. But Aaron's rod/serpent ate all the other ones. It just gobbled them up like superior staff/serpent.
Now y'all have no staffs, bitches.
And Pharaoh's just like, whatever. And he just blows it off because, that's just kind of how he was. So that's one of the things that, shows that Aaron's rod had divinity. Another thing is it caused like flowers to bloom and almonds to appear and ripen at one point.
Almonds?
In his story. Something that people could eat and, take
it's not
as
a cool
sustenance.
Skill.
But like it brought vegetation to life and it gave food to people. Like if that was something that was real that we could harness, then like there would be no hunger in the world. But that's another thing. It's another miracle.
It couldn't have been corn or something cool like that. Corn, wheat. It had to have been almonds.
Maybe he didn't have it on the right setting, Robin. I'm sorry. I'll go back in time and let Aaron know, yo, can you grow some corn instead? But that was one of the miracles. So he has two. It shows that his rod has been touched by God. It has divinity.
Yeah, it was.
So that said, of course, this rod is going into the Ark of the Covenant as well. This object is very, very important. On top of that, the last thing that's supposed to be in there is a pot that holds in it, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced manna or mana, M-A-N-N-A, which is essentially a substance, an actual food that was given to Moses and his people to eat when they wandered through the desert for 40 years. And
interesting.
People have looked at the history of like the word, like the etymology of the word to figure out what it actually was. And it seems like it was an actual plant that they just were able to find and forage and they could sustain themselves on. So it's kind of interesting when you break down certain things like that to see like what part of this story that's based in a lot of different religions is, possible fact and ways that they could have actually lived in the desert for a long period of time and had something to eat basically, but food from God. The Ark of the Covenant contains a pot that has a bunch of food from God. It has important stuff. So the Ark becomes very, very important. It's filled and imbued with divinity. So containing these very valuable treasures, I'm not 100% clear on this, but from everything I've kind of read today and I've always understood about the Ark of the Covenant is the stuff that was in there to start with is supposed to still be in there. Kind of, maybe. We'll get to why it's a maybe in a bit. So that's what the Ark of the Covenant is. So what does it exactly do aside from hold important sacred stuff? Well, because it is so imbued with power and it contains so much of the divinity and it's a vessel that was literally created, told by God to people, hey, create this so it can hold my divine artifacts. It is just untouchable. It is so imbued with divine power. It's supposed to be the physical manifestation of God's presence on earth. If you touch it, you die.
In Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark, is it when they open it that their faces kind of melt off?
It is. They're not supposed to open the Ark of the Covenant either. So that's the other thing. It basically means that, your mortal body cannot handle touching such a divine object, something of that immense power. You're not allowed or supposedly able to look into it. The power contained within it is divine. and it'll make your fucking face melt off. I think that's the direct translation from the Bible. So it can apparently be carried, but it has to be carried by the staffs. You're not supposed, or staves, however you want to say it, but you're not supposed to touch the thing itself. That's why its design has those convenient loops on the side of it for you to put those staffs through. Those have apparently been lost to history as well. They're not exactly sure when they were lost.
Is Moses' staff, lost to history?
Don't know where his staff is.
Because his is the one that was used to split
the Red Sea.
Yeah.
Yes, but I did not look it up because it was not part of this. I was trying to stick to the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure where it is. So if you know, just tweet us. We'll go check it out.
Y'all know where the staff is. Staff Moses, no big deal.
So something this important, something this powerful, whoever had it pretty much basically stated they were wielding the power of God. It said that the Ark, while being carried, was able to stop the flow of River Jordan so that the folks that were with him could cross. So very similar to Moses parting the Red Sea. Those folks brought it with them into battle as well. In particular, the Battle of Jericho, which is something I've always heard of and is an actual battle that took place in history. It's a very real battle. And for 7 days, the sieging army or besieging army, or whatever the word is, they took the Ark of the Covenant because they carried it with them into battle. It'd be like, yo, we have the power of God with us. They carried it around the city, and they had this sort of ritual they would do. They would blow some horns. They did it for 6 days. Then on the 7th day when they were doing it and they blew the horns, the walls of Jericho collapsed. Just boom. The city of Jericho had a wall, and then it didn't have a wall. And it was said to be the power of God wielded through the Ark of the Covenant that won them that battle. And this is something that was part of history. How the walls fell is still debated. I've seen a bunch of fucking things on History Channel about how the chanting and the horns combined could have made some sort of resonance, and the construction of the wall could have reached a point that rocks reach when they're in rock slides where they basically turn into liquid. And a bunch of different stuff. And it was just all coincidence that they were moving this ark around it at the same time. But it's something that it's a very powerful object, and then that happens, and now people are the Ark of the Covenant's real. At one point, these folks lost possession of it. It was taken from them by a different army. They took it. They had it for 7 months. During those 7 months, they had all manner of misfortune, in particular, bubonic plague and tumors sprouting up all over the place. After 7 months, they brought it back. They fought a war,
Wow.
They took it, they brought it back with offerings, a bunch of gold offerings, and basically said, our bad dogs, please take this thing back. We do not want it. So, goes a lot of places after that, sticks with the kings of Israel mostly, but one of the most notable things that happens takes place in 587 BCE, or BC, however you say it. There was this place called Babylon. So, Babylon was what would be interesting if we did? It would be cool, maybe not to them, if we destroyed Jerusalem. So they did. So the Babylonians went to war, and they destroyed Jerusalem. And when they did, the Ark was lost. And this is where the legend of the Lost Ark comes from. And there are many theories of what was done with it after that. Here's the thing. This is where one of the theories comes from. It's not like they just said one day, like I just said, let's just go knock down Jerusalem and just burn it to the ground. What they said was let's go take Jerusalem. And when they went, they had to siege the city for 30 months, which is a long time. It's 2.5 years. And it was decided in this theory that rather than letting the ark be taken, once they realized it was only a matter of time before Jerusalem was going to, be taken, they were going to hide it. Because it was so important, they were going to hide the ark, whether it was in the city of Jerusalem, which is what most people believe, or if it was smuggled out and hidden somewhere else, which is what some people believe. But one of the theories is during the siege, the people that had it were basically we need to take this. They can't take it. We need to hide this somewhere. Even if we don't unearth it at any point in the near future, we need to make sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. So that's one theory. Another theory is that the Babylonians raided fucking everything they could get their hands on. And the ark was a major prize, and they took it back with them to Babylon. What is known is that after Jerusalem was destroyed, it has never been recovered officially. There's been plenty of folks who claim that they have it, and some to this day claim that they have it. It's not surprising, I think, to anyone to hear that this particular area of the world has been in conflict pretty regularly for a very, very long time. We're talking about Jerusalem, the Middle East. This is pretty standard stuff. One group
in particular that is said to have believed in the Ark of the Covenant and searched very, very hard to find it is this group called the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and the Temple of Solomon. It was founded by a French knight named Hugues de Payens. Sorry for the pronunciation. He founded it in 1118. So 1600 years after it was lost. And someone said, hey, HP, you got to come up with a better name for this, my dude. And he said, we'll just call it SHIELD. And the other guy was like, but the letters don't match. That is not a good acronym. And HP was like, you're right. Let's just call us the Knights Templar instead. And the other guy was like, but that also, you know what? That's fine. That's catchy. Just go with it.
It's a fucking sick-ass name.
The Knights Templar are a topic of their own, and they're fascinating without a doubt. But what I'm going to say here is that they were very good warriors. They were very devout and somewhat zealous Christians. And as they gained more followers and won more battles, they accumulated wealth and land and castles and members. And then they began to exert the power that they were accumulating. And from the name, Poor Fellow Soldiers, these weren't people that were exactly chosen. These were people that didn't have a lot, that decided they want to be a part of something great, that all of a sudden had enough power to kind of rival the church that they, were a part of.
It's a bad idea, rivaling your church.
Yeah, it's a very bad idea. But essentially what happens here is they decide that they wanted to go look for artifacts that have long since been lost. One of them is, of course, the Holy Grail, which we'll get to probably next episode. Spoilers. But the other one was the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, they looked for a lot of stuff. At one point, the Knights Templar heard a tale, and this tale is a pretty well-known tale of a person named Makeba, which was the Queen of Sheba, who had a child with King Solomon, one of the kings of Israel, back in the day. That child was a son named Menelik. At some point, Menelik went back there, and he acquired and brought with him the greatest treasure he could find, which was the Ark of the Covenant. And when he left a fake in its place. So he brought it with him to Ethiopia, and they followed up on this lead and attempted to locate the Ark there. There is historical record of the Knights Templar spending a significant amount of time in Ethiopia, despite the fact the crusade was not there, and there were no battles there. They were simply there to try and find the Ark of the Covenant. Some folks believe
that's fascinating.
They did find it there. And that is one of the things that led the church to say, they're a bit too powerful. Other folks think they didn't find it, and it still actually resides in Ethiopia, and I'll get to that in a second. The Knights Templar, of course, meet a very famous end. This is no spoiler for anyone who's ever heard their name. It's a very Order 66 style end, where their power had grown so great that the church and the Pope felt threatened enough to literally slaughter all of them. This did take place. It is very real. It happened on October 13th, 1307. It was a Friday. That is where Friday the 13th comes from. When they did so, I've talked about that in previous episodes. When they did so, they not only killed them, but they took all their shit. They took their equipment, their money, their land, their castles, and all treasures they had accumulated. And they tried to do it all in one fell swoop. So the church sort of reclaimed all that shit. And the church actually admitted that the Knights Templar were wrongfully prosecuted and punished. Of course, they waited 700 years later to admit that, but they did admit that.
Wow.
So the other theory, though, about the Ark being hidden, well, most folks think one of two things. One is that it's still in Ethiopia. In fact, a lot of the people in Ethiopia have a specific place they believe the Ark of the Covenant is located, and the priests that are there keep it secret. They don't let anyone see it, and they themselves are only allowed to see it once a year. So some folks think it's in Ethiopia. Other folks think that the hiding aspect of it actually happened back when Babylonia was about to invade Jerusalem, and that it is hidden in some of the locations within the original city of Jerusalem. Most notably, most often spoken about, is under Temple Mount, which is an old hill that still has stuff there. It's currently venerated as a holy site by Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So it's a very, very important location, Temple Mount is. So folks who think it is hidden there believe that it's hidden in one of the cisterns underground, and no one has access to these. Many folks who try and find or obtain entry to these cisterns go missing. So it's really creepy to think, like, I'm going to go on a hunt to find the Ark of the Covenant, and then no one ever hears from you again.
Yeah, that's just something that either your face has been melted off because you looked into the Ark of the Covenant.
Just don't look into it.
Or those
Don't
protecting it have just murdered you.
Yeah. I found a story from someone who said they went on a, quote, not so legal exploration, end quote, of a tunnel that runs along the outside of the Western Wall by Temple Mount. So in their story, they state they had a rabbi that was guiding them, and they came to an arch that was built basically into the side of like the rock wall. And it had a tunnel that had been like sealed off with concrete. And he was very curious, and he asked why it had been cemented up so much that no one could ever enter it. And the guide told him, quote, some things are not yet ready to be discovered, end quote, and then insisted they kept moving. There's also a story I found on the internet about a priest who was at Temple Mount, who was getting a bit exploratory in some of the older sections of this place, and he loosened a flagstone, and apparently that flagstone was set directly over an entrance to the cisterns. And then after he had moved that flagstone, apparently like moments after, he had, quote, died suddenly, end quote.
What?
That seems like very Da Vinci Code, Indiana Jones style shit, where it's like you accidentally stumble onto something and then the next thing you know, you die or you're taken. So
it could be like a tomb, like in Egypt, where you open a tomb, there's a bunch of fumes in there that are just not good for you. You inhale those things and then you die.
I mean, it's a very vague legend, so it definitely smells of the internet bullshit, but who knows? This is another one of those things where I don't think it really matters whether or not it exists. People's belief in it is definitely strong. As long as folks think it exists, they're always going to be trying to obtain it. I mean, to have in your possession an artifact that literally billions of people would know, like as essentially the manifestation of God's power on earth, that's something people would absolutely kill for. Even if it's just a replica that seems like it's the real thing. I personally don't know if the Ark of the Covenant is an actual divine object or if it contains the things it's supposed to. But I do think that there are objects that are out there that are made to the specifications that they're supposed to be made to, that are said to be the Ark of the Covenant. And I hope they stay well protected and out of the hands of just about everyone, because people cannot be trusted.
Yeah. People in this day and age do not need that type of power. Like, imagine someone using the power of the Ark of the Covenant to do stupid stuff.
There's so many people who like to think they are the second coming because they're so buried up their own ass and they have such a huge ego. I just worry that sooner or later someone's going to be like, I'm just going to build one of these things because I have the specifications and claim that I found it on an adventure. And then I'm like the chosen one.
They can carbon date shit, dude.
Yeah, you could, but you'd have to like actually be able to. And people that lie through their teeth tend to not let you gather any sort of like, evidence of the truth because they're allergic to it. But one of the things I found most interesting, little postscript to this topic, is that while researching, I found out that Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark is based on a true story. I did not know that. It is apparently based on a true story that took place in 1909 of an expedition to find the Ark of the Covenant. And it's apparently a crazy fucking story. So now I have a new movie to cover for Haunted Hollywood's next installment, and I look forward to doing so. Even though it's not about the crazy stuff that happened on set, it will be about the true story behind Raiders of the Lost Ark. And I'm excited to do that in the near future.
I'm excited about that.
So that, my spooky friends, is the Ark of the Covenant.
Thank you. That was super fun.
You're welcome.
Super interesting.
Hope you enjoyed it. Hope no one got offended. So,
if you guys are getting offended over this, it's just, not our opinions. This is just what we
research tell you
on the interwebs
in 25 to 30 minutes what these things are, where they might be, who might have held them, and what their powers might have been. So please don't get offended. And next week, we're doing the big one. We're doing the Holy Grail. So probably going to have a lot of research on that, and I'm excited to see where it goes. But that is everything we have for episode 244. Thank you so much to everyone who listened. If you have a suggestion for a magical artifact or a topic in general, or you would like to share your story with us, it could be supernatural, paranormal, coincidental, true crime, extraterrestrial, we would love to hear from you. Please email storytime@scaryish.com or go to our website, scaryish.com. Click on Contact Us, fill out that form. It does come directly to us. or hit us up on social media. Our Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Our Twitter is @scarishpod, and our Instagram is @scarishpodcast. We would love to hear from you. Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scaryish-podcast. Tiers start at $1. At $1, you get ad-free. Ad-free is the way to be, as Adam would say. If you're not into the monthly donation type thing, you can also go to coffee, ko-fi.com/scaryish-podcast. And those are one-time donations. All your donations go to helping us kind of keep the podcast going. Yeah, keep you guys filling your ear holes with fun facts.
Yes, indeed. So thank you to everyone who listens, donates, supports us, and all the different ways you folks support us. We really do appreciate it. And that is everything we have. So Robin, why don't you go ahead and sign us out?
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.